Kyle Yates here, PFN Live on Radio Row leading into Super Bowl 58. Joined here today by Kurt Warner. Kurt, thanks for taking some time.
You got it. Good to be here.
Absolutely. So I figured we talk some quarterbacks. I think that would be probably good to do.
What else should we talk about?
There are a lot of storyline parallels between you and Brock Purdy and just the journey that you've gone through in the NFL and then what Brock has gone through. What's that been like to see him go through a very similar journey to what you've done and get to this point?
I think you get excited when people have different journeys because you know that there's maybe an 8 or 9 year old kid out there that's dreaming of playing in the NFL or dreaming of doing something else. And so often people say, well, this is how you have to do it. It's got to be this path, or you got to look like this, or you have to have this kind of skill. And I think what my journey and what Brock's journey is kind of shared with people is that there's different ways to be successful. There's different ways to do it. And, you know, just looking at obviously there's different ways to play quarterback and be successful. And you don't have to always be tall. You don't have to necessarily be fast. You don't have to have this biggest arm. You have to bring a skill set to the table. And I think that's what Brock's done is he's gone out and used his skill set extremely well. He's led his team, which is such a huge part of leading anything is being able to elevate the guys around him. And he's won football games. And so I love when we have, you know, and even contrasts like this. You know, maybe the greatest that we'll ever see in Patrick Mahomes against a guy that was Mr. Irrelevant and not supposed to be here. And they're playing against each other in the biggest game. That stuff is so cool because I do think it inspires and encourages people out there to go, hey, if Brock can do it, you know, if he can overcome this and with all these doubts, why can't I in whatever I'm chasing after?
It's been fun to see. The NFL has moved recently towards the Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, mobile, big quarterbacks, Anthony Richardson coming out last year, right? Being drafted very, very highly. And then you have in contrast Brock Purdy, right? And fits none of those characteristics and traits, but yet at the same time is here. He's here playing and in this game here. As you look across the NFL landscape, who is, in your opinion, the most underrated quarterback in the NFL? Someone that does not get talked enough about?
Wow, that's a great question. Throw me on the spot right there. Man, you know, I mean, I think this year it was probably Brock because, you know, because we continue to want to knock all his accomplishments instead of celebrate him. Gosh, there's got to be some other guys out there that I'm just drawing a blank right now. You know, one guy, again, I just based off of what I seeing this year was Baker Mayfield.
Yeah,
I think Baker Mayfield has been a really good starting quarterback since he took over in Cleveland.
Yeah,
and I don't think he got his just due in Cleveland, and then he's out of there even though he led him to the playoffs. And then he comes back this year, and what's he do? He takes a team that's not supposed to be there and leads them, to the division title and then into the playoffs and getting a win in the playoffs. So I think he's one guy that is a bona fide starting quarterback in the National Football League that the last couple of years has kind of been kicked around and people have doubted. And so I'd like to give him a little bit of love because I think he is underrated when you see the big picture. Yeah,
it'll be fascinating to see what Tampa does here this year. Playing last year, 1 year, $4 million contract. I think Baker Mayfield will be paid a little bit more here this upcoming year. Speaking of someone who's going to be paid a little bit more here this upcoming year, Tua Tagovailoa is due for a contract extension here. What did you see from Tua this past year to signal that he either is or is not worthy of that long-term contract extension?
Well, I think the hardest thing about our business is that there's only a handful of those guys that have shown to be elite, that have shown to be difference makers or championship quarterback. There's only a handful of those guys. And then everybody else falls into the next category that, well, can they be that guy? Or maybe they'll never be that guy, but they're a notch below that guy. And you've got to wrestle with, what do we do with that?
Yeah.
And so Tua is one of those guys that does some things uniquely well. He's had some really good seasons. When he's been healthy, he's been really, really good. He hasn't shown us that he can elevate to that next level and take his team, lead his team, and be a championship quarterback. And so that's the dilemma you face.
Yep.
Do you think he can get there, so you pay him? Are you going to pay him just because he's better than other guys, and so he at least gives us a chance and we got to build around him? But those are the dilemmas that you have because the quarterback position demands so much money.
Yep.
And you just haven't had enough of those guys. The Dak Prescotts haven't proven that yet. They're really good, but they haven't proven that yet, and you've got to decide, do they have enough that we'll pay them what we have to pay them and they can elevate us to the place where we can win championships?
Absolutely. So PFN has been here at Radio Row all week. Today is just on a whole other level. What do you got going on here at Radio Row that you need to tell the people about?
You know what? I'm actually joined with an app called Bingo Blitz. So I played bingo when I was growing up. And there was nothing better than when you hit bingo and you raise your card, and
Yep.
you bingo, and you win your $25 or whatever it is. But I feel like Super Bowl week and Super Bowl, the game is so much about that. Like, who's going to have their bingo moment?
Right.
Who's going to have that moment where they stand up and they've got that iconic play or catch or throw in the Super Bowl? So we're tying that in with obviously Vegas because you're trying to come here and win some money anyways. But if you download the Bingo Blitz app, free app, sign up for a free account. If one of these defenses kind of have their bingo moment and they set a Super Bowl record with 8 sacks, either team 8 sacks, then one of our account winners at home will win $1 million and have their bingo moment. So some of the players are going to have bingo moments. We're hoping that a fan at home, someone that has an account with Bingo Blitz wins their $1 million and has their bingo moment as well.
That's absolutely awesome. Kyle Yates here, PFN Live on Radio Row, leading into Super Bowl 58. That's Kurt Warner. Kurt, thanks for taking some time.
You got it. Thanks. Appreciate it.